Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday afternoon. We'll get into the Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd really appreciate that on the way in here. Helps promote this video more in the algorithms. And shout out to all the new subscribers we've had. Like always, the ones we've had recently, people that have left comments. I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, looking forward to today's show. Gonna be an interesting one. And also, please hit the hype the video as well. There's a new set or new thing now they have where you can hit hype on the video and it'll hype the video down in the right by the comment section is. You just click hype, and that also helps promote this video more in the algorithms as well. So I really appreciate that. But like I said, interesting show today. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of news to cover in both NBA and NFL, both Cavs and Browns related. So I'll have the Cavs update on the back end of the show with LeBron update as well. Brian Windhorst made some comments today. Some other news I'll react to surrounding that, and so I'll give my take on that here shortly. But we're going to start today's show with Brendan Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby, you guys probably heard his name a lot, was just caught up in a serious thing with the NCAA. I'll read it right here because it's a lot. Brendan Sorsby, obviously, he was projected to be a first-round pick in next year's draft, the 2027 draft. He's a college quarterback. Played last year at Cincinnati, played well. Transferred to Texas Tech, hoping to build a team there, compete for make the playoffs this year. I don't know about a national championship contender. Well, people thought maybe they could, but he, and I'm reading right here, he was placed, let's see, he placed over 9,000 wagers, right? So he got in a betting scandal. If you guys don't know, he was gambling on games while he was playing, which is obviously not allowed, but also he was betting on some of his own games. When he was at Indiana when he was a freshman. He was a freshman in Indiana, and I believe he went from Indiana to Cincinnati, then to Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken. So, but he placed 9,000 wagers totaling at least $90,000 on collegiate and professional sports across 4 years. So across a 4-year span, he placed 9,000 wagers for $90,000. So that's a lot, obviously. He was checked into, where is it at right here? He was recently, following a highly successful 2025 season at Cincinnati, Sorsby transferred to Texas Tech on a massive multi-million-dollar NIL deal. Shortly after, it was discovered he had a severe gambling addiction, leading him to undergo a 35-day inpatient rehab program in Arizona. So he went to rehab for his gambling addiction, severe gambling addiction. They said, obviously 9,000 wagers, 90 grand. I mean, that's a lot. And he just got a multi-million-dollar NIL deal. Hopefully the young man, slows down and, changes some decisions in his life and where he's heading towards, obviously, because that's a serious thing. Personally for him, with that kind of money, you can blow that money fast. So, and I know a lot of guys who fortunately have gambling addictions. It's a real thing. And some people I trust don't ever get into it because they're like, man, if I had the kind of money I had, or if I had that money I didn't waste on gambling, I would have had my house paid off by now. But I basically spent their whole house mortgage on gambling. So it's obviously a serious thing, no doubt about it. And so you're taking a guy who has a lot of upside. His game, to me, when I watch him on tape, he shows me flashes of Jackson Dart. That's kind of who I see as a little Jackson Dart, mobile guy, big guy who has a nice arm, can extend plays, right? Can run up the middle. He does a really nice job at using his feet. He has a lot of talent, but I think with this attached to him, it's definitely a risk you're going to take as a team. And so, obviously, and the lawsuit went on. It was an NCAA ban lawsuit. The NCAA ruled Sorsby permanently ineligible, prompting his legal team to sue the organization and secure a temporary injunction from a Texas judge to allow him to play. Facing heavy scrutiny from the NCAA coaches and university's leadership, Sorsby mutually parted ways with Texas Tech in June, which was yesterday. He pivoted away from college football entirely, and he's going to apply for the NFL's supplemental draft, which he'll get in most likely. He declared for the draft. So Brendan Sorsby is available, possibly for the Browns. Now, how does the supplemental draft work? Because now, obviously, the whole thing with the Browns, how do the Browns come into play? Well, he's a guy that was projected to be a first-round pick next year. I don't believe the Browns feel like they have their guy in the building right now. Doesn't mean one of these two guys, especially I would say more so Shador, can't become that. But the Browns have operated under to me, like they're a team we'll see what happens this year, but We have 2 first round picks next year for a draft. It looks like there's going to be some legit quarterbacks in the first round. Arch Manning type, Dante Moore, those type of guys. You're projecting them to become, franchise caliber type guys. And then the Browns obviously have a lot of smoke with Arch, which I've covered, but he's a guy that his name, he was going to be a first round pick next year. And some people came out today, some, national reporters said that they think he's better. You take the last name off the jersey, they think he's better than Arch Manning. So there are some people with some high praise for this guy. There's some people that think this guy is kind of mid, that he's not worth it. I think he's a Jackson Dart kind of guy, where Jackson Dart, you remember, he was, people debated whether he's a first or second round guy, right? But the talent was there. But Jackson obviously had some questions in terms of his consistency and stuff like that. But to me, I think with Sorsby, um, I think he's Jackson Dart type talent, but obviously a lot more baggage. There's a lot more here because that's a serious thing, obviously. Not only just the integrity of it, betting on your own team's games and stuff like that, but it's like every time this guy throws a touchdown for the here on out, whether it's fair or not, whether he really went away from gambling and doesn't go back to it, um, and actually has moved on from that in his life. If the guy hasn't cleaned up his act, if he hasn't, you just won't know. Will 35 days in a rehab be enough to turn this guy around? I'm not really sure. Possibly. I'm sure he's obviously had a lot of thinking to do about this. I'm sure he didn't want to be in this position. I'm sure it's kind of embarrassing for him in some ways. He got caught doing this, and he has to go to the supplemental draft now. I don't think that he wanted to do that. If he would have did everything the right way, he would have played next year, he would have made millions of dollars next year, and would have been a unanimous first round pick most likely. But now he's in this position. So you think the young man obviously hit a wall, and you're hoping that he obviously the 35 days help, but the situation helped shook him up and wake him up to be like, hey, you got to make smarter choices. You can't go down that road. You need to just focus on your career, being a football player, and keep a clean slate. But again, no matter if he changes or not, every time the guy throws a pick or a touchdown, people are going to say, well, I wonder if he had some money on that. It's always going to be something, right? And so it's kind of obviously completely different allegations here, what I'm about to say. So don't take it a different way. But when the Browns brought in Deshaun Watson, there's always something, a narrative that's going to come along with him with the allegations that's never going to go away. Right. And these guys are human beings. They put themselves into situations, right? But they are still humans. Over time, if you try, it's still something. And it's for the organization, to the team. It's always there. It's always in the back. It's like the elephant in the room, right? And it's always, and over time, it may go away, especially if they start to play well and win. Which, for Sean, he hasn't at all. It's been the complete opposite of what we thought it would be here in Cleveland. But, I think with this guy here, you're taking a risk, though, not just with him, but also it's another thing you're bringing in the organization where if you look at the Browns, is it really worth it? Because you're a franchise that's taking a lot of risk, and you've taken a lot of guys with character issues off the field. And I know a lot of people, the Browns have done that a lot more recently, but if you look throughout the history of the NFL and really just in sports, teams in life, places you work, people are taking people with sketchy characters all the time. If somebody has talent in some area, or they bring value to a company, whether it's in business or sports, most of the time when the money's involved, people are a lot of, and it's I don't think, I'm not saying I agree with it or not. And then I think sometimes people do deserve second chances, if they really have repented and remorsed and changed and turned from whatever they did. I think we're all sinners, we've all fallen short, but you know even if a guy has it, or if people will still take a risk on people if it means value for them and makes more dollars, helps them contribute to what they're trying to do. Whether in NFL sports, it's winning, making money, it's a business, right, for these owners, or in the business world, but somebody can help you make more money or whatever. In life, it's always something. People are always going to take chances on people, whether they have flawed character or not, or have things baggage off the field or on the whatever. Right? It's just part of it. The Browns obviously have shown more than other franchises that recently that they'll do that. Deshaun Watson, obviously point A. Yeah. That, we'll look past all his allegations, right? We'll pay this guy, even when he told us no, we'll still pay him $230 million. Okay. fully guaranteed to get him here. We'll look past that. And so now with a guy like Brendan Sorsby, this is following the Deshaun Watson, because the Browns' last big acquisition, that was like that, was Deshaun Watson. Obviously, they took Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round and Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. Those are 3rd and 5th round picks. The last big swing they took was Deshaun Watson. This will be another big swing to me. So coming off Deshaun Watson, is this the kind of guy do you want to take a swing on? Because also you got to remember too, what will it take? How do you get this guy? So if you don't know how the supplemental draft works, and I had to pull it up here on Google to kind of read about how it works. So basically, it says the NFL supplemental draft acts as a summer auction for players who lose college eligibility for the standard spring draft deadline. Instead of traditional selection process, teams place blind bids using future draft picks, rounds 1 through 7, to acquire them, forfeiting the corresponding picks in next year's draft. And so, again, like Josh Gordon was a supplemental draft pick. Bernie Kosar was a supplemental draft pick. Josh Gordon, when he played, was a hell of a player, one of the best receivers I ever saw talent-wise. Obviously, it didn't work out in the long run. But Bernie Kosar obviously was the last legit franchise quarterback this organization ever had back in the 80s and early 90s. So they have done it before. It's worked out well for him. And obviously, Gordon wasn't a long-term thing. Short-term, it was great. Long-term didn't work out. But they have hit there in terms of talent. So how does the process working towards it getting – so you heard there what I read there, teams place blind bids. So basically, the Browns say, I want to put a 3rd-round pick on Brendan Sorsby. We'll put next year's 3rd. So next year's draft, you're taking one of your selections and saying, well, we're going to put our 3rd-round pick on him. Now, how do you guarantee you get your player or not, right? How does the process work? And so it says it's a draft and bidding system where it's lottery tiers. So basically, order is assigned via a weighted lottery split into 3 distinct categories based on previous regular season finishes. So it's a 3-part category. It's a lottery system, right? So teams with 6 win or fewer, they're the first one, right? Remaining non-playoff teams, they're the 2nd tier. And then the rest of the 14 playoff teams, they're the 3rd tier. The Browns will be at 1st tier. So, and if you look at the teams that are in tier 1, outside of the Jets and the Cardinals, they're the only 2 teams that possibly need a quarterback. Now, the Cardinals just took Carson Beck. I don't know, maybe if Sorsby would change their mind on that, they feel like he was a guy they would have possibly looked at next year, right? The Jets, the same thing. They don't really have a quarterback right now for the future, but he's a guy that maybe they'll look at. I think the Buccaneers in tier 2 is a team I would look at, because right now, it seems like them and Baker aren't really on the same page. And I think Baker's days in Tampa might be lit. It might be done. I don't want to rule that out. I think it's 50-50, but it feels very similar to 2021 when Baker, ended his time here in Cleveland. But so with the Browns, though, with Sorsby, they could take him legitimately in the first tier 1. And how far are they willing to go, to go after this guy? And what do I think they'll do? Well, Jeremy Fowler put out a report today about what he's hearing about teams and what they're willing to give up for Brendan Sorsby, what he's hearing value-wise. Here's what he had to say.
Brendan Sorsby will apply, as Pete said, and then the league has to accept that application. The expectation, talking to some league execs, is that they probably will. There's really not a precedent for them not to at this point. He was not an employee of the NFL when he got into the gambling issues. So now there is precedent, however, for Roger Goodell to step in with a suspension like he did with Terrell Pryor back in the day in the supplemental draft. So that's possible. But the feeling is that Sorsby's pretty confident that he will get cleared and be able to enter the draft. Once he is a active participant in the supplemental draft, they have to set a date for it, which should be sometime this summer, sometime in July. And then the fun begins. As Pete said, there's going to be a workout, a pro day, July 10th. Right. Teams can meet with them like a traditional draft setting. And then they're going to be tempted to give up some serious capital for a player who's very talented.
There's the lottery to see where the teams stack in terms of where they're going to pick and how many draft picks or what draft pick they're willing to give up for him. You kind of alluded to it there, but the chatter with Sorsby in NFL circles is what?
He's probably a late first-round talent. That's how teams I've talked to looked at him, that if he was in April's draft outright, he probably would have been in that Jackson Dart range the previous year, somewhere in the mid to late 20s. That was the feeling. When I asked teams what they think his supplemental draft pick will be worth, the typical consensus is a 2nd-round pick, that they wouldn't give up a first. Typically in the supplemental draft pick, it's been decades since that happened. Yeah. But it's going to be some high value, and there are a lot of teams that are going to be interested. I know of a lot of teams that are high on the player. They already have a starting quarterback, so maybe they don't get too involved. But you have the usual suspects, New York Jets, Cleveland Browns, Arizona Cardinals. They all have either serious capital or a major need at the position. When you talk to teams and executives that I trust, they're saying, like, this guy is a major talent, and he can move, and he can move in the pocket, and he can make all the throws, and he's athletic. There's going to be some serious pushing around to try to get him in this draft.
So that's courtesy of ESPN, Jeremy Fowler. And he said a lot there. So obviously they're going to have like a pro day type thing July 10th where teams can actually get him in person, work him out, meet with him a little bit, right? And then after that, it's on to the lottery. And that's what ultimately what's going to dictate, kind of where the Browns are, placed at. Because if the Jets or Cardinals get in front of them and they like Sorsby, then, they'll probably get him before the Browns. But I think there's the Browns if the Browns are seriously interested, they have a great chance of getting this guy. And the Browns also, if it's something they consider doing, he said their consensus is second round pick. So you look at the Browns next year in 27, they have 11 picks. They have 11 draft picks next year. They have their own first and the additional pick they got from the Rams with the Myles Garrett trade. They have their own second. They got their own third. Another fourth, plus 2 additional picks from the Giants in Seattle. So they got 3 fourth-round picks. They have 2 fifth-round picks, and they have a Texans 6th-round pick, and then they have 2 7th-round picks. So they got a lot of picks next year. They got 1, but they only have 1, 2, and 1/3. But they have 3 fourths. So, and they have 2 1s. So they got a lot of maneuverability they have where they can move up and down the board next year. They have some flexibility. It's definitely, if there's a year for the Browns to do something like this in terms of draft capital, you can do it next year because you have 2 1s. And let's say he comes in here, he takes over middle of the year and becomes your starting quarterback, and you're like, this is our guy. Well, now you got a ton of flexibility because now you have 2 1s next year to build around this guy. You already have a good nucleus you're building here the last 2 years, a good foundation. And then you have all the other draft picks in the back end of the draft too after the second round. So it makes a lot of sense for him there. But, is it really worth the risk, though? I personally don't believe it is because you're already in June. And I get it's very tricky because the guy, I do see Jackson Dart a little bit in him. And I like Jackson Dart when he came out. I thought Jackson Dart arguably was the best quarterback in that draft going into it. He ended up being the best quarterback coming out of it, so far. I mean, he had a really good year before he got hurt. So Jackson Dart comp, I think, is very fair in terms of style of game. Okay. Doesn't mean he's going to be as good as Jackson Dart or maybe not even be, that kind of guy in terms of like a, first round pick, but I think the talent is definitely there. I think with Sorsby, though, how I look at him is this: hell of a talent, right? He has a lot of tools there you can work with, a lot of raw ability. I think had he gone back to Texas Tech next year, and then I'm ready to a new update. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. But had he gone back to Texas Tech and played one more year, I think he might have played himself into a top 20 pick. I really do, because teams are always greedy for quarterbacks. And next year is been labeled as the draft, right, for quarterbacks. This is the biggest. Next year will be the biggest quarterback draft you've seen in a while. Okay, you're gonna have some big names up there, guys who have, but definitely I think will have franchise caliber talent, right? They could be your franchise guy. March Manning, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers. This guy was in the hat, right? There's some other guys that might play their way up into there. There's a lot of guys next year. Julian Saints, another guy who knows he could play himself into that next year. The talent, he has arm talent. You never know. Like, there's a lot of names next year. And so teams are going to be greedy to get a quarterback next year if you need one. And even if you don't, even if you're a team like the Rams, right? How many years you just took Ty Simpson? Let's see how Ty Simpson looks, in the preseason and how they feel about him after. But maybe there's a guy they feel like, hey, this guy might be better. We'll take him in the second round next year. They have their second round pick next year. Or maybe a team like, maybe not the Rams are a good example. Maybe the Bucks, right? Like I said with Baker, they're a team that could possibly be looking to take a quarterback next year. Consider if he's even there or not. So there's gonna be a lot of teams that are looking to get a quarterback. And I think if you're the Browns, if he's a guy that was labeled a first round talent and you can get him this year, right now in the supplemental draft, then have your 2-2s next year to build around him. It sounds good, but is it really for the betterment of the team? And that's where I say no, because we've already heard the coach Todd Monken talk about it. And I'll let Todd Monken explain it again why he doesn't believe it's a good idea. And I agree with Todd Monken here. why I don't think already, you're 5 weeks out now till training camp. You just had all your offseason installs and everything at OTAs and mini camp and meetings and everything. I don't know if you want to insert another quarterback with this caliber, with this type of everything that comes with it, what he could be, why they're taking him, and in the off the field stuff. I don't know if it's really something you want to install in your locker room when you just hired. This is your head coach you just hired. It's gonna be his first year. B, he's trying to establish a culture, and then also you already have two quarterbacks that are in a battle right now, and Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, who have already had tons of reps already. And they're building chemistry off the field as well with the receiving core you have on the offense and everything. And you were the worst offense in the league last year. Like, you got to show some stability this year. You got to get something going there. And so Todd Monken, though, spoke about it recently. And this is via Darrell Ryder, 93 The Fan. He posted this again today. And this is what Todd Monken said the day before the Myles Garrett trade at the golf outing at Akron Firestone. Here's what he said about it 2 weeks ago back then.
Not at all. I mean, that's not even come across my desk. I don't think we're in a position to want to go down that road. That's my opinion. That's not Andrew's. And that I like the quarterbacks that we have. I think that's a slippery slope when you go down that, irrespective of talent, right? In terms of the situation he's put himself in. Like we all know what that is. He put himself in that situation. And we've seen in other sports with players that have been banned for life from playing in professional sports. I think that's a slippery slope to go down that road. Again, that's a question for Andrew and for management. But from my end of it, kind of a tough angle to go down that road and think that that's going to be your franchise quarterback if he's ever eligible to even play in the NFL.
Todd Monken, man, he ain't afraid to tell you what he feels. I mean, he even said it flat out. That ain't what Andrew thinks, but this is what let me tell you what I think. And Todd Monken, he told you what he felt about him. And I'm gonna take it another step. You know what Todd Monken's really saying about the guy? Hey, great talent, but that's not somebody I'd want to coach. That ain't somebody I don't want that guy lead my franchise. I don't want that guy running my offense. I don't like his decision making. It's what he's telling you. And like you said, he took it a step further. There's guys that have gotten banned from sports with the stuff that he did. I just don't see how Brendan Sorsby, after those comments, could come in here and even A, work with Todd Monken, but also B, Todd told you too. I like the two quarterbacks we have. We're already working. We're already moving along in our offseason program, gearing up for the season and training camp starting up here in a couple of weeks, like in a month or so. Like, training camp, a month and some change. Training camp, like you're right. You're not too far away. You're right outside from starting training camp, right? And after all you did, Todd Monken's trying to get buy-in from his team and trying to set a culture to president here. After Todd Monken made those comments, I don't see how you can put that guy in that locker room because it would cause a divide possibly in the locker room. I think because Todd Monken just told you what he said. He didn't mince words what he thought about the guy. He told you flat out what he thinks about the guy and his character and everything. He couldn't play for Todd Monken, and I don't think Todd Monken would want that guy in his locker room. And the Browns, for Todd Monken's sake and for the health of the locker room and the culture, should not want that guy in there because I think it's a huge risk in terms of that. Because if this guy goes in there, starts making friends with some of the players, maybe plays okay, right? And he's still bitter at what Todd Monken said because I'm sure he saw that. He's gonna see it. Somebody's gonna show it to him. I mean, Todd Monken didn't mince words. Like who knows? I mean, and maybe not. Maybe they take this guy and he plays great, and him and Todd are best friend. A great quarterback coach duo, and they become very close and kumbaya from here on out. Maybe that happens. You never know. But I just don't see how you could put that guy in that locker room after Todd said that. To me, I get it. It's a business. Guys will put their feelings aside for money and everything. And Todd ultimately is going to do what is best for him, right? Protected his job with the organization. I get that. But I just think it's a serious problem if you put that guy in the locker room after he said that. I don't see, and I don't think it's if Todd Monken didn't even say what he said, I still think it could be a serious problem because, again, you already have two quarterbacks here who already have pretty good chemistry with these guys. Your offensive guys that come out and sit in the media, they're both how they're all in on both these guys. They like both of them, and we've heard somebody talk about Deshaun Watson's leadership recently. We also heard them talk about the Shedeur Sanders leadership recently. Like, the guys have relationships. They're going out of town, travel with these guys. They're holding throwing sessions from now until training camp with the guys. Like, they're already building something here with the group, with the QBs they have. You insert another guy, it just adds more dysfunction that I think it's a circus you don't need. Just like you did last year. You had a 4-quarterback circus that completely was a shit show, dysfunctional, and was a complete disservice to A, those quarterbacks in that room, especially the 2 rookies, but also B, the rest of the team. And you knew you were going to start Joe Flacco all along. And you had days last year, because you had 4 quarterbacks, that Joe Flacco didn't get reps at all mini camp, and he went to the media and said, "Yeah, I wish I would have had a couple. I need my reps to get rhythm going in practice." So to me, you're bringing in another guy. You would have 5 quarterbacks. One of them's got to go. Who the hell wants Dylan Gabriel? Huh? A bag of chips and a pack of Newports for him? I mean, I wouldn't trade a 6th or 7th round pick, no pun intended, for Dylan Gabriel. Nothing against the guy. He's just not an NFL quarterback. He's too damn small. So, I mean, you going to trade Shedeur? Is it worth? I mean, I don't know. I mean, will a team give you something for Shedeur? Maybe like a 2nd or a 3rd, a 4th? I don't know. I mean, again, you're 5 weeks out from training camp. That's not very ideal in a situation here with their quarterback room. But, I think the Browns, I get it. You're in a situation you have to find your franchise quarterback. You got a guy sitting there. It's a unique situation. I totally get it. Like I listed earlier, I get the reasons why you would be intrigued with it. But I don't think it's for the betterment of the team to make that type of move. When the coach comes out and says that, I think you got to say, the hell with it. Like, we got to let it go. And here's one thing I think the Browns actually, I'm gonna play what Andrew Berry said recently. I'm gonna share with you another theory what I think the Browns could be doing here. I'm gonna share with you another theory in a minute. But let me play Andrew Berry. He was on with Ken and Lyman the other day at 92.3 The Fan in the morning, and he was on their show. And here's what he said with them. Actually, it was Lima and Darryl Ryder was filling in for Ken. But Andrew Berry was on the show the other day, and he spoke about Sorsby and the possibility of it. Here's what he had to say.
I think there are 2 things. I think there are 2 questions I ask, because we're all human, and I'd imagine everybody that's on this call and listening to this show, I'm sure everyone has made mistakes. I think I really ask 2 questions. I ask, number 1, is this a bad person or did they make a bad decision? And then the second piece is like, okay, what are they doing after the fact, whether it's to correct the behavior? Like, is this like is this a pattern of decision making? And if so, have they done something to stop the pattern, or is this an isolated incident? Because the reality of it is, like, we're all going to screw up, and some certainly mistakes are greater in magnitude than others. But I think, the most important thing, in Brendan's case, is like what he does from here. Obviously, it's a great first step, to get the help that he needs. But then it's like, okay, what is around him? What is he doing to make sure that, like, he can maintain healthy habits moving forward? And so it seems like it's a very good start there. Obviously, I don't know all the details at this point. But I think probably, within society, so to speak, I think we could all stand to use a little bit more grace.
That's courtesy of 92.3 The Fan. And I like what Andrew Berry said there at the end. I agree with that about grace. We all need forgiveness and especially more nowadays than ever, and grace and compassion and all that. And he deserves that. I hope the young man turns his life. I really do. I hope he goes and has a successful career. I don't wish any harm upon the guy. Again, here, and I'll be honest, they being that young with that kind of money, the guy had a lot of temptation, obviously, around him, like a lot of people. Not everybody has that kind of money that early in life. But oftentimes, a lot of people that have it all, between 20, from 20, by the time they're 25 or before that, a lot of times end up losing it all by the time they're 30, because we're not meant to have everything, okay, that early in life. Because I'm not the same person I was when I started this show at 26 years old. At 22 years old when I started the show. I'm 26 now. My maturity is a lot different than it was 4 years ago. Oh, right. So, but there's a lot of things that I have now that I wouldn't be able to handle that really I couldn't have handled back, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, possibly. So I agree with what he said. And I think Brendan Sorsby does deserve a chance. I think he deserves a chance and he deserves to get a look. I just think for the Browns, they have a side of it as well. From his side, he deserves a shot. I wish to him well, and I hope he has a great talent. I don't deny that. I think he has tremendous talent and upside with the right situation and coach. He can definitely become something. And he may be a tremendous value to a team, a steal for a team that takes him. Maybe the Jets take him and he goes on to be their guy, right? But I think from the Browns' side of it and their situation, does it really make sense for them and where they are right now with the quarterback room that they have? All the reasons I pointed out earlier, what the coach said publicly, I don't think it makes sense for them, right? I don't think it makes sense for them. But here's what I will tell you. I think Andrew Berry is being a shrewd operator here. I really do. I think he's being a shrewd operator in some way. Here's my theory what I think the Browns could be doing here. What if Andrew Berry, right? Because the Jets, I think, are the other team next year that I think could possibly try to get Arch Manning. Okay. I think Arch wants to be somewhere where it's either a big market, right? And I get Arch has to go out and play well this year and all that shit. I get it. I think Arch will go out and perform pretty well this year. I think he will be a top pick in the NFL draft. I think I like the talent. I believe in the kid personally. So, and I'm not looking at the last name. I actually watched tape. And I think if he can build off of what he did in his last game against Michigan, I think he could have a Joe Burrow type of season this upcoming year, like he had at LSU. So I think Arch Manning can be a dude. Okay. I think the Browns, for all the reasons I point out in the past, obviously have heavy connections and ties to Arch Manning. Todd Monken does. Jimmy Haslam does. The whole organization has a lot of ties to Arch Manning and the Manning family. And the only team I think that could possibly persuade them to not go to Cleveland would be the Jets because it's New York, it's the market, the whole thing. What if the Browns, though, are trying to, put out there like, hey, we're really intrigued with Brendan Sorsby? Because the Jets are sitting there looking at it like the Browns are, like, damn, this is a possible first-round guy next year, projected first-round guy that we can get right here in the supplemental draft. And it's only between us, Arizona, and Cleveland because we're the three teams that are probably going to be most likely, unless Shador, again, and Shador could change that. I believe in Shador, but he could possibly go out there and play that well this year. But a lot of signs are pointing toward the Browns are going to take a quarterback next year. So are the Cardinals and so are the Jets, right? So the Jets could be sitting there looking at it. Even the Cardinals going, we can get a guy in the first round right here. And we feel like this guy, we've already projected him to be a first rounder next year. Teams start doing work on guys 2 to 3 years out. I think the Browns attended a Cincinnati game this year. Andrew Berry did. So, and that's very common. They start scouting guys, especially a quarterback, 2 to 3 years in advance. So teams have already done a lot of homework on this kid. They know him pretty well. They know his game. They know what he's going to be projected to be. And so what Andrew Berry could be doing here is thinking, there's a good chance we're going to get the first crack at, or the second crack at this, right? In the tier system where we're going to be able to take this guy. What if he's trying to put pressure on the Jets where the Jets basically say, you know what, we got to put a higher bid on this guy. We got to put our second round pick on this guy because we just can't miss this quarterback, right? We got to make sure we get the quarterback because nothing's guaranteed, but we got to guarantee getting this guy right now. And maybe Andrew Berry clears the pathway even more to where the guy they really want next year's draft is really available to him because, what if Sorsby, if whoever takes this guy, they're probably going to commit to him the next year and maybe a year after that, right? You're basically, I think if you're putting a second round pick on this guy, which Jeremy Fowler said it's consensus, that means you're probably saying he's our future for the next 2 to 3 years. Like he's going to be our guy. We're going to try to build around him. When you put that high of a pick on him, you're saying, okay, we're giving this guy at least 2 to 3 years. So I think Andrew Berry could be trying to bait the other teams into doing that where it clears the pathway even more for them to get, especially the Jets, to get their guy who they really want in April. It's just a theory. I think it's a possibility he could be doing that. Again, this is all business at the end of the day. Wouldn't surprise me at all because I still think the Browns should stick to their plan A that they've had all along. Roll the 2 guys you have this year, see what you got. And, let's regroup in the draft and see where we are. We got 2 first-round picks. We can get it. We got 11 draft picks. We can get aggressive to move up to get the guy we like. So I think they should stick to their plan. I wouldn't take Brendan Sorsby. I don't think it's worth the risk for them, but I would use it against other teams like the Jets and try to get them to pressure them to take, hype them up a little bit, right? Well, we really like this guy, blah, 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 because the Jets and the Cardinals are going to have the same temptation the Browns have with this guy. And I think the Browns could use it to their advantage, like I said, to open up to who they really like next year in the draft. It's just a theory, but I think it's possible. But for me, I wouldn't take him. Here's what I think, though. I'll conclude with this, and I'll answer the question: Do I think the Browns will seriously consider taking this guy? I think they will. I think Andrew Berry will, because Andrew Berry has showed you, and Darryl Ryder, above his tweet, I thought put an excellent analysis on this, and it says Andrew, where he put it right here, and I'll put it back on the screen for you guys right here. This is what he said on his tweet, and I think he hit the nail right on the head. Andrew Berry, right, looked the other way and traded for Deshaun Watson, gave him $230 million guaranteed. He is the GM that believes in second chances. Brendan Sorsby is right up his alley. I think he will grab that talent at a discounted draft price, plus let him use the 27 draft to build around Sorsby. And I don't think that's a far out. I think I get what Daryl's saying there. You look at Andrew Berry's track record, seems like this is something he would definitely do, right? I think, though, Andrew Berry, to me, is starting to shape himself a little more as a GM especially without Paulie Podesta here anymore. And shout out to Humble. Welcome, and everybody just tuning in. Hey, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button. Shout out to Humble. But to be honest with you guys, I don't know what Andrew would do now, right? Without the people that were used to be here in the building. I hope he listens to his coach. I hope they come to a real consensus agreement on it, because I think he does need. You have to listen to your coach. You have to listen to the guy that's coming here trying to build the culture and establish a locker room of development and consistency and winning. A guy who's actually developed quarterbacks. If the coach who came out and said it's not worth the risk, then you probably shouldn't do it. You should listen to the guy that you hired, who is an expert at this in terms of evaluating quarterbacks and all that, and managing a locker room and everything and developing. That's why you hired him. You probably should listen to him. And so I hope Andrew Berry doesn't go outside of the building. Or not outside. I hope Andrew Berry doesn't go away from, aside from Todd Monken, like, I'm the GM at the end of the day, which he is, and say, I want this guy at a discounted price, and you'll just have to deal with it. I just think it would be kind of awkward. I don't think it's a right fit for the Browns right now. I think they're better off just looking forward to the draft next year, because I think they'll still have a very good chance of getting who they like in that draft. But I wouldn't put it past Andrew Berry. I think Darryl Ryder makes an excellent point there that, it wouldn't surprise me if they went for him and got him. I wouldn't do it. But I also think, I wouldn't do it, but I also wouldn't put it past him. So I'll just leave it at that. That's my thoughts on the Brendan Sorsby. Do I think he's worth the risk? I don't, but I get, from a talent perspective, I get it. But for all the reasons I pointed out, I think from the locker room standpoint and the guy himself, and just, it's definitely a big risk it's a big gamble that I don't think that they should, go for. I don't think it fits. It's not what the Browns need. The Browns have had a history of taking risk on guys, and they need to finally just do it the right way, because everything they've done so far, going back to last year's draft and then cleaning house this year, bringing in Todd Monken and having I think they just had a tremendous draft again and good offseason so far. Like, everything's trending finally in the right direction. Don't finally just blow it up again and possibly put a stick of dynamite in it again, and it'll just explode and implode internally again. Like, you're finally doing everything the right way, in my opinion. Just let it be. Roll with what you got. See with what you got. You got a young guy who's been developed, going into the second year with some upside. Roll with him. You're better off going with him and see what you got with Deshaun. And you're going to get, I think, better prospects in the draft next year. I think he's a good one. Don't get me wrong. I think he is a first-round guy. But I think you can get guys that are even better and coming in the draft. You have to. So I would just stick with your plan. Don't overreact. You're finally doing everything the right way. Listen to Todd Monken, Andrew Berry, and Jimmy Haslam, and stick with your plan and keep doing what you're doing. Don't mess it up, taking a risk again. We don't need that. All right, so that's how I view the situation. I'm gonna take a quick break, real quick, to regather my notes, because that was a long one there, a long opening statement. But when I come back, I'm gonna react to some of the news today on the Cavs and LeBron. We'll finish up the show, so don't go anywhere. Stick around.
Because when people put labels on you, so sometimes people believe them. After a lot of, constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever. Sometimes
I think
people
this
believe
is
them.
important. I wrote this down right here because this is key for people our age, especially somebody like me who's 23, single. Is don't wear the labels the world might say you are. And so people could tell me in my life, some of the things in my personal life, obviously because we're good friends, but certain things maybe I haven't achieved yet because of what happened to me, just because of circumstances. But if I were to keep wearing that label of I don't have X, Y, and Z yet, or if I would go by the world standards and the pressure, and sometimes even your own family, and he even said in the sermon earlier, he said sometimes the wisest thing for you to do, nobody will agree with you, literally nobody, and that could be your own. It could be everybody around you. But as long as you listen to the voice, you can feel that conviction. Why should you be afraid? Why not? What's there to be? You know what I mean? That should give you somewhat of a confidence, and it's hard to do because when everybody around you is telling you what to do, you can start to wear I could have started to wear those labels and started to I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today though. I could tell you that I'd be in a deep hole. So I guess kind of what we talked about this in our last episode we did too, back I think it was like in October.
Yeah.
About being bold and courageous, and because that's really what it is. I think surrendering, it takes a leap of courage, of faith. And so I guess kind of what are the things that have helped you in your past, or what some words of encouragement people out there, especially our age, watching about being bold and courageous and not wearing your past, not wearing the labels and all that.
It's something that's, it's easier said than done, but you definitely have to try to surrender. Surrender it all to God. Giving it to Him, laying at the foot of the cross, and just trusting Him through it all. Because when people put labels on you, sometimes people believe them. After a lot of, constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever. Sometimes you believe them, after hearing it enough, and then at the end of the day, it's just lies. But you have to trust that, Christ is going to set you free, as He said He will. You just got to take the first step and surrender it to Him first before He takes it, because He's not going to do it forcefully. He's going to do it. He wants you to take the first leap of faith.
All right, welcome back. Time to move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Brian Windhorst today made some interesting comments on ESPN Cleveland. I'm going to get here in a minute, but are they running it back? What's their plan? What are they going to do? I think the Cavs definitely are not going to run it back. I don't think they can, especially when the owner comes out and says this after the season that, we're nowhere near we need to be, right? We're going to dig all in this summer. I don't know how you go from that after you lost to, hey, we're just going to run it back. Fuck it. We're going to bring back Kenny Atkinson. No trades. Bring back Dean Wade. Can't get enough of him on defense and everything. Like, just run it back. I don't think they will. I think right now the Cavs, I think they're going to, I think they will in terms of keeping Donovan. Obviously, Donovan's not going anywhere, but I think they really will keep Evan, which I agree with. And I think they will, obviously, they have to bring back James Harden. But Jared Allen, I'm not so sure about. And when you listen to Kobe Altman after the season in his press conference, when he was asked about the big man front court, he was very vague. He was very quick how he talked about Jared Allen. We like Jared, great guy and everything. But he really went on about Evan Mobley. And I think they really mean that about Evan Mobley. They like Evan Mobley. Like, they view Evan Mobley as like, he's still a cornerstone guy for us, elite defender, the whole thing. Jared Allen, I think, is very expendable for them. And I think it's a guy that can use the positive, get somebody that could help the franchise and take the next step, right? So I think, to me, I don't think they're going to run it back. I don't think the owner can't say what he said here, right? And then you're going to run it back with Jared Allen. I just don't see that. But Brian Windhorst made some interesting comments today, talking about what he's hearing about the Cavs right now, what their plans are on ESPN Cleveland. Here's what he had to say this morning, talking about Dennis Schroeder possibly being on the move, and the Cavs trying to shed salary to have more maneuverability. Interesting. Here's what he had to say.
They're looking to shave off some salary. I think primarily, I think they may be investigating if they could move Dennis Schroeder, which is not a surprise because Dennis Schroeder's moved by every team that ever has him. But I think if anything, they're just trying to make sure they have some maneuverability with that second apron, and that they're prioritizing re-signing Dean Wade over re-signing Keon Ellis. And maybe they can do Ellis too. I don't know. It depends, I guess, on what else they can do salary-wise. But I mean, I know that there's this desire amongst some in the fan base for them to radically change their roster. And, there's conversations you could have about the merits of that, but this is not the information that I have that they're looking for a radical change. The most recent thing I've heard with the Cavs is they're looking to shave.
So that was Brian Windhorst this morning talking about, again, trying to cut salary. And I found this very interesting. Why are you trying to cut salary, right? Why are you trying to cut salary? What's your goal here? And to me, I think, like you said, they're trying to get out of the second apron, obviously, because why are they so desperate to get out of the second apron, though? Because when you get out of the second apron, it clears you up a way for you to make trades and to have more maneuverability to make other changes to your roster that you can't do. When you're in the second apron, you're handicapped. So I think they're trying to, A, shed salaries like Dennis Schroeder, right? That helps, like he said. But also, James Harden, I think he's going to take a deal where it's going to help them get out of the second apron as well. I think he's looking at a $30 million a year type of deal for 2 years. So 2 years, $60 million deal with a lot of guaranteed money. So that's going to help tremendously with that as well. But also, you got to have flexibility to try to go out and get a big piece. Because when Dan Gilbert says we're nowhere near we need to be, Dan Gilbert's going to try to take a swing at something. Okay? Like I keep saying, well, obviously LeBron is the name to me that is the likely scenario. But how do you get LeBron? Right? What do you do? And so I think with LeBron, how they're going to try to get him and what they could do is you got to shed salaries first. Okay. And then also you're going to have to find a way to get him money that he wants, right? He's going to take a pay cut either way. He's not going to get paid the $52 million he got paid last year from the Lakers. That's not going to happen again with LeBron. He's not getting that kind of money at age 41 ever again. Now, how far low will he go, though? I think the Lakers are generally trying to get him around a $28 to $30 million, $25 to $30 million deal, possibly, if they were to offer him one. From what I know and what I believe, from what I've heard, privately, what I've read publicly, I don't see a world where LeBron is back with the Lakers. I could be wrong on that. Brian Windhorst believes that that LeBron and the Lakers will come to an agreement. That people around the league believe that. I just don't see it. I think the Lakers' actions this year kind of signal that they didn't try to keep Ronnie around for a future contract in terms of like an extension. They didn't make any moves at the deadline, and I think everything they're doing is geared towards it's full Luka land now. And I think Mark Walters made it clear before the year that they'll let LeBron play out his contract like he does with all his other stars that he's done with the Dodgers and with the Commanders. What used to be the Redskins. And I think, his group has always operated the same way. When you have an aging star, they've always let them, A, finish out their contract, and then B, they move on from them. They just like that, clean slate. He's going to do the same thing with the Lakers. And he's already cleaned house at the Lakers in terms of they just laid off a ton of people, and he's already installed a lot of people from his ownership group. And I think it's all about building for Luka. And I think they're done with LeBron. And I don't think LeBron's going back. Yeah, they might be in talks right now, but I think LeBron knows he's not going to be back. And I think they know that as well. So that leaves two teams that I've said all along that are out there. The Warriors, obviously, is the one that's got a lot of traction recently. But then the Cavs. And so, to me, I think the Cavs make more sense because the Warriors can only offer him a $15 million mid-level exception. Yes, he could stay in California, which I think he preferred to do. His family likes being there. It's their home now, right? He could be, only not that far in San Francisco from LA, but I don't see him going back to the Lakers. And I don't think it makes sense for him to go to the Warriors, even with, okay, you put him with Steph Curry. Steph Curry played 40 games last year, 40 something games. Not a lot. He's older. Draymond Green, older. Jimmy Butler's not going to play till February at least, at the earliest, in the next season. And they have no depth. So how does that make any sense with the Warriors? It just doesn't. And I think it'd be a terrible ending to his career and a waste of time. And so, to me, the best move is the Cavs. He's back in the East. He's got a team that's just in the conference finals that it really needs him as a piece away, right? And it's a storybook ending back home. Nobody's going to fault him for it. It's the storybook ending. It's the best ending. I think everybody would love it. And so it's good for the league as well. And it puts another star back in the East Coast market like LeBron. And so I think the league needs, because the league, I think, needs to make more money since 2020. And so, to me, all those things, all those factors lead toward, I think the Cavs make a lot of sense. Now, again, I think Jared Allen will be the odd man out. And he spoke on his show today about Jared Allen and what's going on with Jared Allen. And here's what he had to say about Jared Allen that I found interesting. He says the Cavs don't want to trade Jared Allen just for shedding salaries, but there is one exception they may make to trading Jared Allen. And here's what he had to say.
Right. Another player that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks that you mentioned that Laker fans were excited about the idea of potentially getting Jared Allen. Are you hearing any rumblings about Allen potentially being moved?
No, this is one of the things I keep Laker fans, like, because I'll say to like people in the Lakers media, I'll be like, who are the Lakers going to get to play center? And they're like, oh, well, they've got their eye on Jared Allen. I go, okay, got it. How are they getting him? Oh, well, the Cavs are in the second apron, and they're going to have to offload salary. I go, yeah, okay. And they might be able to get Allen. I go, okay. You think they want to give away like their franchise center who's under contract for years and and all that stuff? Like, you're going to get him with a 2031 protected first? Could Jared Allen be traded? Of course. There could be a trade. Are the Cavs going to salary dump him? No, they're not going to salary dump Jared Allen. Like if you were seriously in the bidding for Giannis and it was like you need Jared Allen in the trade, there's just the discussion that you're going to have. Okay.
Right.
The Cavs are, Jared Allen is embedded in this organization. Anybody can be traded, but I do not foresee him moving unless you're talking about a major retrofitting of the roster.
So what he said there at the end to me is really what stood out. He's a big part of the organization, right? He's embedded in here. We like Jared Allen, right? He is. He's part of the core four. But you only trade Jared Allen, like he said there, unless it's for a big upgrade in the organization. I think LeBron is the upgrade. Because he mentioned Giannis there, but LeBron's the other name that's been mentioned. I think LeBron's always been the most likely over Giannis. And so, to me, if you're trying to shed salary, I look at their actions. Again, actions speak louder than words. They're trying to shed salaries. They prioritize Dean Wade, right? The Lakers have interest in Dean Wade, which Brian Windhorst reported. I also heard the Lakers have interest in Keon Ellis as well. You could put together a sign and trade package where you have Jared Allen, Dean Wade, and Keon Ellis for LeBron, maybe some other pieces from the Lakers, or maybe just LeBron or whatever, and Bronny, and you'll get them. And LeBron actually, if I read, LeBron probably would make around $20 million a year, 20 or more, from the Cavs in a sign and trade. So he would get more money than he would from the Warriors still. And he's coming to, I think, a better situation. Where you put Mobley at the 5, you put him at the 3, you get a 4 now. Like, you can really do some things with that roster. And you can build a contending team. Like, they were just in the conference finals. You added him. So, to me, I think LeBron to the Cavs is very well in play. And I've heard that from people that it's very much real and that it's a very real possibility. And I think the closer we get to July 1st, the hotter it's going to get. The rumors are going to get hotter, and things are going to start to heat up. Because Brian Windhorst said this today as well on ESPN Cleveland. I thought was a little interesting as well. I respect the Brian Windhorst. I respect what he does. He's been around a long time. Hell of a reporter, but he does. He'll give you little hints here and there of kind of where things could be trending towards. He tells you what's going on right now, currently today, but also what could happen. And a lot of times, what could happen, what he points out, good chance it might actually happen. A very good chance. And so, he was asked about how right now they want to bring the quarterback, the whole thing, but he could have a different set of information next week, he says. And next week is the NBA draft. Interesting. You know what's the week after that? Free agency. Interesting. So here's what he said today on his appearance on the Really Big Show. At the end here, here's what he said that I thought was interesting.
What I'm hearing from you today is no Giannis, no LeBron, no Evan Mobley trade, no Donovan extension.
I would prepare myself for all of those things. I wouldn't say any of those are absolutes. But look, we could come on a week from now and I could have a complete, I'll be in New York for the draft. I'm going to have conversations with executives and agents nonstop over the next week. We're going to see transactions start to happen. You're going to see contracts start to get agreed to. You're going to see the draft start to fall into place. I could have a different set of information about the Cavs. They may have already decided to do some major deal that I don't know about yet. But as of right now, I think what you just said is what they're looking at. They want to kind of bring this core back that made to the conference finals, and they want to improve it.
What I'm hearing from you today.
I'll listen to the end there again.
Back that they want to kind of bring this core back.
They want to kind of bring this core back. Okay, we heard what he said about Jared Allen earlier, that they're only going to consider trading Jared Allen if it's for an upgrade. And I think LeBron is the upgrade, right? And so to me, I think everything's, if you guys ask me my honest opinion, honestly, based on what he's reported today about shedding salaries and the rumors in the last couple weeks about Dean Wade and the Lakers and all this, Lakers interest in Jared Allen itself. You look at LeBron's situation itself. I think I cut out there, so I repeated myself. But guys, I'm telling you, I think it's all gearing up towards a return to Cleveland. I really do. I think actions to me speak louder than words. It wouldn't surprise me if he went to the Warriors, because I think that's been very much a real thing that I know of. And I think the Lakers, I think LeBron probably wanted to finish his career in LA. I don't think the Lakers are giving him really a choice in it, though. And the people that helped him, that were his leverage in LA, aren't there anymore. Jeannie Buss doesn't run the team anymore. Like, that's over with. So I think it's kind of a new era in LA. It is a new era, and I think he's just not part of it. And I think that's what that's going to come down to. I think they've decided that. And who knows? Maybe they will bring him back. Maybe the Lakers said, you know what? Maybe we'll just bring him back. The hell with it. I don't see it. And I wouldn't rule out anything, because you never know. But to me, I think the perfect world, the team that makes the most sense to me is the Cavs. It really does, for all the reasons I pointed out. More money than the Warriors, better contending team. You're in the East, homecoming story. It just all makes the most sense. Brandon Weems, the GM. Brian Windhorst downplayed that. Oh, that's not a bit. Listen, I talked to people over the weekend that know LeBron and Brandon Weems, and that's a great relationship. It's a deep relationship that goes back a long time. They played together in high school. That's just not something to just brush off. Like, I think LeBron, I just said it. I think part of the reason why it's over in LA, because I think his leverage is not there anymore. LeBron has to have leverage. Why would LeBron want to be second or third fiddle to anybody? He wouldn't. He's not going to Golden State because Steph Curry's, that's Steph Curry's franchise. It's never going to change. He's beloved in that state. Why would LeBron go be, second fiddle to him? That'd be stupid on his part. Why would he go for his legacy? Why would he want to go, and stay with the Lakers with no leverage and Luka's gone? It's just not going to happen. Clearly, him and Rob Pelinka don't have the best relationship. I don't think they've really spoken a lot in the last year, from what I know. And you've heard the comments that have been made publicly, or I don't say comment, but what's been written about publicly by Dave McMenamin. That relationship's not great. So LeBron has to go where he has leverage. When he was in Cleveland, he always had leverage. Part of the reason why he left Miami, you've heard the story about the chocolate chip cookies on the plane, how they removed the cookies from the plane, and that pissed him off. And a lot of people thought that was like the first sign that last year Miami that he was definitely leaving. He didn't have leverage in Miami. It was Pat Riley's show. He had to go there. He had to play it out. But ultimately, he left, right? He left Pat Riley, and he went to 4 straight finals, won 2 championships, and he still left because LeBron's got to be somewhere where he has a little pull. Okay, he's a superstar. These guys move differently. than other players. Right? He's a unique, rare player. Okay, you're not going to see this guy probably ever again in your lifetime, like a LeBron type of guy. Maybe 20 years from now, I don't see it. Maybe 10 years from now, but even Wemby, he's just not LeBron. Okay, so these guys operate differently. They got to have some pull, and they deserve it. And I think they should have that. You know, we're talking about Donovan Mitchell having some input on the organization and the stuff that they do, right? Because he's a star, he's a franchise guy. LeBron is a franchise guy no matter where he goes. Even at 41 years old, still playing at a high level. And especially in Cleveland, for who he is at the area and the whole thing, like we know the story. Like he's the man here. LeBron comes back to Cleveland, he's instantly the A1 guy. Hell, some people would say he probably still is even not playing in Cleveland. So, like, he's the dude here. We all know that. Like, he's got to have. So, Brandon Weems is a bigger factor, I think, than people think. Than even with Brian Windhorst, I think it's a bigger factor. And the timing of it to me is very peculiar. So, I'm just speculating, but and when it comes to that, about the Weems thing, but from what I know, I think that's a bigger deal. And I think it means something. Like, and I think LeBron has got to finish his career. He wants it to go out with his own version of The Last Dance, and I think he wants to go out with a bang. You know, it's been a hell of a story since high school, and I think why not cap it off with another big, bang shebang at the end. And so, I think the Cavs make the most sense, and I think just reading between the lines, what he's reporting, what I'm hearing, what I'm reading. I got a feeling, man. I think by July 1st, I think it's going towards the Cavs. I really do. I think Jared Allen, again, I could see a sided trade scenario where it's Jared Allen, maybe Dean Wade, Keon Ellis involved for LeBron and Bronny, and maybe some other pieces to throw in there, some picks, whatever. But I could totally see that happening. And I think it makes sense for both sides. They get their center for Luka. LeBron gets to come back home and gets the money he wants, right? I just think that's where it's gearing towards. It makes the most sense if you think about it for all the reasons I pointed out. And maybe LeBron says, screw it. I just want to retire in LA. Because honestly, I think the only reason why I could see LeBron saying, screw it, I just want to be retired in California. He might as well just take the money from the Lakers. But the problem is, again, I don't know what the Lakers are actually going to offer him. Like, I don't think the Lakers really, I don't get the vibe that the Lakers like truly want him back. I really don't. And that could change. I'm not saying they don't want him back, but from what I've heard throughout the year and read and just looking between, I just don't see that partnership anymore. Remember Rich Paul said it last year around 4th of July weekend that, they've enjoyed their partnership with the Lakers, but they're going to get, LeBron was going to evaluate where he's at in his career, how he's going to finish. You guys remember that statement Rich Paul made last year? That very much applies right now because last year he had one more. He had a player option. Of course, he was going to opt in for that $53 million because he wasn't getting that kind of money ever again. Now he's an unrestricted free agent. There's no option. There's no nothing. Remember what Rich Paul said last year, right? Should I put that statement up here again? Maybe I should. Well, maybe I should put that Rich Paul statement up here. If you're tuning in, please like, subscribe, and share. And when this video is over, go back and watch my Brendan Sorsby take about the Browns. I did at the beginning of the show, first half of the show. But you remember Rich Paul last year, right? When he made that statement, right? Where is it at? It was right here. It was last summer. You guys remember it? Because there was a whole thing, right? Where was it? Right here. I think this was it. Right here. And so this was back, and I think this was in July of last year, if I'm not mistaken. Where is it at? Here it is, right here. All right. Sorry, this has been a little hard to find. Brian Windhorst. We're not Brian Windhorst. Okay, so this is Brian Windhorst right here. I'm trying to find the statement, guys. For some reason it's hard to pull up. You think it would just pull up right on the on Google, but it's not. Okay, here it is right here. All right, there we go. This is official. This is back at June 29th, 2025 from Shams Charania. And this was what Rich Paul said back then. Okay, sorry it took me a minute to find it. It was like, do, 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 do. Okay, that whole thing. Here we go right here, right? And again, This is what he said last year when he opted into his contract. Right. Damn, where the hell is this at? Okay, right here. Here we go. Rich Paul said this last year. Remember? LeBron wants to compete for a championship. He knows the Lakers are building for the future. He understands that. He values a realistic chance at winning it all. We are very appreciative of the partnership that we've had for 8 years with Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka. Consider Lakers as a critical part of his career. When Rich Paul put that statement out last year, to my estimation, from what I've heard and what I think he meant by that, right? What do I think? And I don't know why it's not shown on your guys' screen, but it is on mine. I don't know. Okay, anyways. But when he made that statement last year, okay, Rich Paul, I think, from what I know, was saying they knew when he opted in that was going to be the last year. Jeannie Buss was gone. And, okay, here we go. Fine. I was clicking on the wrong link, but he knew that Jeannie Buss was gone. Obviously, she had sold the team. Mark Walters was taken over. The transaction had happened, and the transitioning was going to happen within the organization that following year, which was this past season, which it did, right? And I think they knew then that this upcoming year was going to be the last one. And that's why when you read that statement, it sounded like a farewell. We're appreciative of the 8 years we had with Jeannie and Rob, because ultimately LeBron's tenure, if he leaves this summer, it was with Jeannie and Rob Pelinka, mainly Jeannie Buss, right? That was his person. She left. She sold the team. Rob Pelinka's still there, but Jeannie was the leverage. And clearly Rob Pelinka and LeBron's relationship doesn't seem like it was always the greatest. So they knew, but I think they knew then it was over. But they also say, he says it right there, the Lakers are building for the future. AK, they're building for Luka. I'm not the guy anymore. But I want to go compete for a championship. And I want a realistic chance of doing that. But what he's saying is, I'm going to play it out this year, which he did, right? This is, again, speaking in terms of last summer. But after this upcoming season, it's going to be over with. And I think it's over with, guys. It's been over with. I think they've known that. And he said, when he made that statement last summer, he knew what he was saying. They're very calculated what they do, okay? And he also went on to say, in that same statement, we understand the difficulty in winning now while preparing for the future. We want to evaluate what's best for LeBron at this stage in his career, in his life and career. He wants to make every season he has left count. And the Lakers understand that and are supportive and want what's best for him. Okay, so you can't. And what he's saying there is the Lakers are going one way and we're trying to do another thing. We're in a totally different timeline. It's time to move on, which they are. And also, we want to evaluate what's best for LeBron, because he said in the previous paragraph, in the statement, in the sentences before that, LeBron wants to make every, or he says a couple of sentences later, that LeBron wants to make every season he has left count. So they're going to make the decision that's best for LeBron, and they're going to be very calculated in how they do it. And the Lakers understand that, and the Lakers know. Again, the reason why I bring this statement back up, this was back from June 29th of last year. Remember I reacted to this when it came out. He obviously opted in the $53 million and was going to play one more year, which I came on my show on July 1st, I think it was, and I said he'll play this year in LA, and he'll next year at this time of free agency, we'll discuss this LeBron possibility of the Cavs again. And here we are. And it's very, very real. And I think it makes the most sense. I think it's lining up towards that. And so you go back to that statement from last year, it's definitely going to happen. And Dan Wojcicki, who covers for The Athletic, who covers the Lakers, put out this the other day, or no, yesterday, I think he wrote this. It says, as the team enters this exclusive negotiating window with James, because right now they're in the negotiations with LeBron. Because they have his rights, he was under contract with him, they can negotiate with him right now. So they have the first crack at negotiating with LeBron. It says, it continues, it cannot know with certainty the best road to travel this summer. Maybe trades present themselves and the Lakers can upgrade the way before the draft. Maybe teams look to spend in free agency. Looking to spend in free agency will identify the Lakers as a landing spot for contracts that need new homes. Maybe the Lakers will put pressure on teams with restricted free agents. He goes on, it says the plan is, as of now, isn't clear. It continues. And that means the plan for James probably isn't clear either, which, considering what he did last season and what he'll surely be capable of doing next season, has to be at least a little uncomfortable for him. It might not be the first time James will be undervalued, but it'll be the most obvious. And no one can know for sure how that will sit with him as he evaluates if and where he wants to play. Now, he will play next year. That's no question. But, again, this is from the senior Lakers, right? Again, so we saw Rich Paul's statement going back to last year. We heard what everything Brian Windhorst said today. I told you what I think, what I've heard. And then here we are reading this from an LA reporter. Again, he pretty much said it there. LeBron's not – it's the same thing a year later. That's what he just wrote right there in that first paragraph. It's probably a little uncomfortable for LeBron not knowing what the Lakers, what they can actually do. Because remember what they said a month or a couple weeks ago that LeBron wants the Lakers to explain to him why he should take a pay cut, like what they're going to do with the money. Well, the Lakers can't really do a whole lot with him on the roster to really upgrade the team and become a real contending team over, especially in the West, over the Thunder and the Spurs. And other teams are going to get better too. There's nothing they can really do that will significantly make them better. So I think the decision was already made a year ago. They knew that they knew that was going to be his last season this past year. But also, you look again. Here we are a year later, and you read what the Lakers reporters saying. It's over. Okay, it's done. He's not. I don't think he's going back to L.A. Only the reason LeBron would ever consider going back to L.A. is if the Lakers caved and said, you know what, we'll pay this guy because of his name, and LeBron just wants to be in L.A., which he has every right to do. I don't think the Lakers are going to do it. And I think LeBron knows that. And I think what Rich Paul said is LeBron wants to make every season he has left count. I don't think LeBron wants to keep doing what he's doing. Getting bounced out in the first round, getting swept the second, whatever. I don't think that's how he wants to finish his career. I don't think it affects his career, but I think he wants to go out with a bang. Okay. Rich Paul said it in that statement. So again, all signs are pointing towards I don't think he's going to re-sign with the Lakers. I don't think the Warriors make a lot of sense. He can actually get more money to sign and trade with the Cavs. And for the Cavs, it makes a lot of sense for them, too. You get a guy that actually has been there, done that. He could be a Superman to Batman, which is Donovan Mitchell, which I think they need. And he brings leadership, and he can help get them over the top. And I think putting Mobley at the 5 and then, playing more of a 4 out, 5, 1, 4 out, 1 down, and having more spacing out there. I think that's what the Cavs need personally. And Mobley's obviously an elite defender, and I think he'll be just fine. And you get somebody else in here at the 4, they can really build a team here that can really, I think, be better. And LeBron obviously improves the team already. So I think by a lot. And so, it makes both sense. It makes sense for both sides. And I think that's where it's gonna be heading towards by July 1st. And so we'll see what happens though. Some new news can crack. Hey, Brian Windhorst said I can get some new information here in the next day, 2, week, whatever. And maybe my opinion changes. But right now, that's where I stand. So there you have it. Shout out to all you guys. Shout out to the people we had on Twitch today joining in. It says, hello, I'm currently working at work, but I'll definitely stop by with my squad during your next stream. Shout out to you, Michael O_5. Go at him. But yeah, shout out to everybody that tuned in today. I wasn't planning on going live today. We had some news that I had to react. So just follow along with it. So we'll have some bigger lives here obviously coming up where, we'll have some guests, some people up here talking about it. I'll try to get more towards the evening when I go live, because obviously that's a better time people can view and interact and stuff like that. But please like, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment below in today's video. Hype the video as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.